Now, I always boast that we are the only organization that has a carpet type of network. Wherever you go in South Africa, you'll find an ANC branch, whether they like it or not. To me, that President, we've given houses to people. And I said, yes. And I said, if you were to value the houses that we're giving to our people today, that we've built for 160,000, obviously others we built much cheaper earlier, it means that we are giving them an asset base which is worth easily, in today's market prices, more than 300,000. Now, I often go around our continent and other countries and I ask, what is your housing program look like? Many countries, they say, people have to pay for houses in one way or another. And I said, do you give free houses? They said, only exceptional.
China's former sports minister, Guo Zhangwen, has been sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve for accepting $33.4 million in bribes and abusing power. And early this morning, China has executed Bai Tan Rui, a former manager at China Horong International Holdings Ltd, for accepting more than $156 million in bribes. That's what happens in China when you receive bribes and abuse powers. In China, they will punish you immediately, but here in South Africa, they won't punish you immediately. In fact, the word immediately might save you from prosecution if you can manage to give your own understanding of the word. Yes, someone please remind Cyril Ramaphosa how many ministers in South Africa have been receiving bribes. We all are aware, but nothing is done. The justice system needs to change. The corrupt individuals need to be identified and removed. That's how we solve problems, not by promises. You can have ANC branches all over the world, but how does it benefit us when allegedly some of the ANC members themselves are allegedly participating in corruption? I mean, you have Shamila Batoi as our National Director of Public Prosecutions, yet she herself at times doesn't even know the contents in her own statements that she herself submitted, yet we are somehow supposed to believe in her to prosecute high-profile criminals. Take a look at this and I'll come back.
What I want to ascertain from you is whether we should read this sentence as it appears, that open quote, they did so and concluded. If my reading is correct, it means they who prepared that opinion then made a conclusion, not that it is you who concluded.
Chairperson, that's the way it reads, and that is in fact the way it reads. I'll have to read the report again to make sure that is what it is.
No, Council. That's what it is, that they did so, the authors of the opinion did so, and they concluded that there was a sufficient basis, blah, 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 blah. This is what they concluded, not that you concluded.
Chairperson, as I said, when I prepared this affidavit, I'll be honest with this court, I didn't read any of the annexures. These annexures have been read by me years ago. We prepared this under extreme haste. I did not read any of the annexures. I've been reading them subsequently to try to prepare. And that was the position when I signed this affidavit. And I agree, it reads as they did so and they concluded that there was sufficient basis. But I will have to look at it to make sure that what I signed to was in fact accurately captured.
Council, it is helpful to be very, very concise and not end up saying things that you don't want to say. When you say you did not read this document, it may mean a lot of things. So please just answer the question and not elaborate on what I'm not asking for, because it's a simple thing. Should we read the sentence as it is, or do you want to correct it under oath? Because you're still under oath. What I want to ascertain from you is whether we should read this sentence as it appears, that open code. They did so and concluded. If my reading is correct, it means they who prepared that opinion then made a conclusion. Not that it is you who concluded.
Chairperson, that's the way it reads. And that is in fact the way it reads. I'll have to read the report again to make sure that is what it is.
No, Council. That's what it is, that they did so, the authors of the opinion did so, and they conclude.
Yes, you saw that was difficult to watch, and then our president doesn't show any sense of urgency in the tone of his voice. It is just the same Cyril. I mean, pay attention to the body language of the people in that room. You can tell that this is nothing new. It almost feels like that one Afrikaans essay topic that you always choose for every grade every year, because it's very easy. We are able to predict what our president is planning to say, making promises of jobs to a better future for our kids, a better everything. How is giving people houses something to be proud of? When your healthcare is crumbling, criminals are being given bail, at some point there needs to be a balance. But how long are we going to focus on that one thing you did and not focus on what the average youth need? The youths need jobs. The houses are there for magogos to enjoy their pensions. The people that are supposed to protect us, some of them are getting rid of us. Unemployment is on the rise, education pass rates sitting at 30%. You give a person a house, but they don't have food because they were not educated enough to have the necessary skills in order for them to secure a job. But what job is there? Because there are limited jobs for scarce skills. Only a tiny minority are able to secure because our government is prioritizing social grants. And then we have this guy is called Fidel Adams. I don't know if it is stress or what, but this is what came out recently. Parliament punishes Fidel Adams for sharing DA staffer info online. Parliament has reprimanded Fidel Adams, Member of Parliament, for National Coloured Congress after he posted personal information of a staff member belonging to Democratic Alliance on social media without consent. The sanction follows a complaint by DA Chief Whip George Mahalikis, who argued that the dissemination of the staffer's private details amounted to an assault on dignity, the right to privacy, and the right to have personal information kept safe and secure. After finding that Adams violated the Parliamentary Code of Conduct related to social media use, the Joint Committee on Ethics and Members of Interest ordered him to issue a formal apology in the House, docked his salary by 20 days, and suspended him from participating in parliamentary debates and committee work for a period of 20 sitting days. This marks the second ethics breach in 2025 for Adams. Earlier in July, he was reprimanded for a vulgar, racially and sexually offensive video rant targeting a DA female member. In a statement, the committee described the latest act as reckless and irresponsible, reiterating that MPs must not use social media in a way that brings Parliament into disrepute. The development is likely to raise further questions about accountability and ethical conduct among elected representatives, especially given the recurrence of serious violations by the same MP.
I won and find that, yes, God has been good to us. We don't do that. Now, in many countries, they often count them in millions. You will hear them talk about their statistics. We've taken so many millions of people out of poverty. Now, when we look, as I said yesterday, at how we spend our national budget, our budget this year was 2 trillion rand. And 61% of that goes to the social wage. It goes to social grants. It goes to education, to feeding the young children at school. It goes to the 350 rand, which has now increased to maybe 370, and all that. That is what we envisaged in the Freedom Charter. And that is what we as the ANC also need to count. Yet, as we have noted, many communities continue to experience serious service delivery failures on a regular basis. Households struggle with the cost of living. We should never minimize this. We should recognize what has been done, but that should inspire us to do more and better. And this is what this NGC should be all about. We shouldn't navel gaze. We shouldn't rest on our laurels. We should now say, we have traveled so far, and we now must travel a much longer distance and improve the lives of our people. And yes, reduce poverty and inequality. These problems are compounded by the distances that people have to travel to work or social services and insufficient infrastructure in townships and rural areas. Reducing poverty and inequality is therefore one of our most important and urgent tasks as we pursue the vision of our forebears as articulated in the Freedom Charter that they adopted at the Congress of the People. The Charter says there shall be peace and friendship. South Africa is a force for peace, for partnership. We are a force for cooperation on the global stage. Our foreign policy emphasizes human rights, peace, mutually beneficial relationships. That's who we are, as defined in our Freedom Charter. Memorializing the Freedom Charter, we also need to memorialize and draw inspiration to how our organization worked in the 50s when apartheid brutality was getting up to a high crescendo after the nationalists had won their election in 1948, and apartheid then started more formally and more brutally. They were able to organize even then. We have to ask ourselves whether we are able to continue with this rich legacy that the ANC had in the 50s. At the time of the Freedom Charter was drafted, apartheid was tightening its grip. The Freedom Charter boldly rejected racial hierarchy and demanded a society built on equality, democracy, and human rights. And you may recall that was a time when the Nationalist Party was propagating this fallacy about the swart gevaar, the fear of black people, deceiving white people in our country that black people wanted to drive them to the sea. Now, the apartheid government then saw the drafting or the adoption of the Freedom Charter as treasonous. It embarked on dawn raids across the country on the 5th of December 1956. They arrested leaders of our movement and put them finally on trial for treason. In Kliptown itself, they surrounded the gathering venue, raided the meeting, confiscated documents, photographed delegates, intimidated them. These actions were not random intimidation. They were also collecting material to criminalize the Freedom Charter and its authors. What does your housing program look like? Many countries, they say, people have to pay for houses in one way or another. And I said, do you give free houses? They said, only exceptionally. We are amongst the very few countries in the world that gives such access to our people. And even now, as we now want to modernize our policy of making houses available, we will be implementing what was set out in the Freedom Charter, that there shall be houses and security for our people. Through social grants, free basic services, health care, free education, school feeding schemes, and other interventions, millions of South Africans have been lifted out of absolute poverty. We still have unacceptable poverty in our country, but we have been able over the 30 years to lift millions of people out of absolute poverty. Now, quite often, we hear of other countries, and that's precisely what the National Chair was saying. We don't, as I think it's said in the Bible language, we don't count our blessings one by one and find that, yes, God has been good to us. We don't do that. Now,